next article was by Tom Pyzdek. It was called Gaming the Metrics. And the subhead on this one was Use Metrics to Guide Improvement, Not Measure the Performance of People. And we're going to bring Tom on here in just one second, but the idea behind the article is that sometimes metrics, even well-meaning metrics, and even maybe you're measuring the right thing, but you're using them for the wrong purpose. And with us right now via Skype is Tom Pyzdek. Tom, do we have you with us?
I hope so. I'm here.
Oh, great. Some of you listening, we may be having a little bit of audio problems, a little bit of buzz, but just tune that out,
please,
so to speak. So Tom, tell us a little bit. When you say gaming the metrics, what do you mean gaming the metrics, and give us maybe a couple of examples.
Well, there's a natural tendency of human beings to look as good as they can. You mentioned the automobile as a status symbol. But the metrics we use to track our performance are also something that's near and dear to our hearts. So if you're a baseball player, let's say a position player, your batting average and your error count is very important. If you're a pitcher, you have numbers that are important to you as a pitcher, the ERA, for example. In the business world, we also measure performance, and quite often those measurements are used to determine what someone's pay, whether or not they're going to be promoted, whether or not they're going to be disciplined or fired if these metrics are not correct. And we all know, all of us in the quality improvement profession, that the system is often more important than the person's individual efforts. And when we judge people by metrics that they have either little or no influence over, there's a tendency to try to make those metrics look good in other ways.
Okay, and what's the result of that? I mean, when people game the metrics, as you say, what does that do other than on a personal level they're cheating?
Well, on the quality improvement, from the quality improvement perspective, we're distorting data. So it's giving us a misleading picture of the process or product that we're trying to make an improvement to. So, for example, inspectors, if you look at histograms of inspection data, what you'll often find is right at the specification limits, there's a peak that goes up. And where you should have a nice smooth normal curve, you have a gap past the spec limit before you have any data. And we call that flinching. So what's happening is the inspector doesn't want to take a marginal measurement to the supervisor and cause all kinds of trouble and cause a stir. So what they do is, if anything is close but no cigar, they'll bring that in. So they'll fudge that metric in so that it doesn't require any additional effort on their part. They don't have to reject parts or shut down processes. But it's a distortion. And what that indicates is there's a fear factor. I was an inspector for a number of years, and I can tell you that when you bring the bad news to a supervisor that their process isn't meeting the requirements, there's some hell to pay. You get into arguments and disputes just like a close call in a basketball game, and you'd rather avoid that hassle. Now, if something is considerably outside of the requirements, that's not an issue. But if something's close, there's a tendency to game that and to fudge it. If you have an old-fashioned micrometer, you might lean on it a little bit just to bring it in, for example.
So let's explore this a little bit. You say one of the reasons people game or you use the word fudge, or if it's something on the edge, well, we'll just put it on the good side of the edge rather than on the bad side of the edge, is out of fear. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, as I say, if you're an inspector and you're known for being very strict and rejecting things that are anywhere near out of spec, there's going to be a tendency to look at you as not a team player, or someone who's not interested in the bigger picture, just only interested in these rigid guidelines. It's going to be a career-limiting move for you to reject any more than you have to. So there's a fear of reprisal and ostracism, and just a natural tendency to make that metric look as good as we all hope it will look. As a teacher, for example, when I have a grade that's borderline, I really have a lot more work on my hands than if I have a passing grade. So, someone who's borderline beyond my passing grade, I have a real desire to bring that in. I may look at my questions and see if they're vague. I may look at their answers and see if I can give them partial credit. So just trying to avoid the stress that goes along with bad news, and bad news being metrics that don't measure up to the requirements.
Okay, so actually now I'm hearing two things. One is there may be a fear of if you don't want to be the bearer of bad news. You don't want to be the person constantly reporting something out of spec. So if it's on the edge, you may fudge it towards the good side just to keep in everybody's good graces, maybe make yourself look better. But now you're saying there's also another aspect where it's easier just to say yay or nay if it's on the edge, and might as well be yay, than it is to have to go through the extra effort of really trying to narrow it down and how close to the edge is it? Is it really over? Is it not? It just takes more work once you're right on the edge of a spec.
Right, and it also applies to management data. So for example, if my productivity numbers are being tracked and I'm in a system that uses activity-based costing in the wrong way, I may be measured based on how much I utilize a particular piece of equipment. And so what I'll tend to do to get efficiency down, I have a certain setup cost that I have to amortize. I'll run that equipment perhaps longer than I really need to meet customer demand. But the result's going to be my metric looks good, but the company is stuck with work in process inventory that is adding cost to the overall product. And there are a lot of things done that are driven by accounting metrics that are harmful to people in the Lean Six Sigma and quality professions, because they actually have negative results for the organization as a whole.
Okay, so what is the solution to this? I mean, if you don't want people to game the metrics, how do you set up your organization or whatever you're doing differently so that that isn't the case?
Well, in terms of changing accounting systems, for example, there are systems that are developed by the theory of constraints people called throughput accounting. There's lean accountings that will let you measure the process or the value stream or the organization rather than measuring individual people within that organization. So from my point of view, the ideal metric is one that's designed to help us get better. And I think we get better by looking at metrics that measure an important outcome, and also metrics that measure drivers of that outcome. So we're trying to identify a cause and effect relationship that we can use to make changes that will make the overall outcome and result better. And these metrics, first of all, there'll be far fewer of them because we're going to focus on the critical few. And secondly, they're measuring the performance of the system. And from a management or leadership point of view, that's really what we're interested in. It doesn't take a number to determine if somebody is working hard and is capable, or they're sloughing off and incompetent. That's more of an understanding of the people who work for you. And I don't think metrics serve that purpose very well.
Well, Tom, you're kind of touching on. We did get a question in here from one of our viewers. It's kind of a long question. I think we can glean from it what's going on here. Nice article, Tom. There seems to be some gray area, however. You use the pronouns I, we, they, and someone as gaming the metrics. If broken down to employee classifications in the production world, the grunts on the floor don't have the option to change any portion of the metric formula that you use other than their own performance as it relates to defects. That's not gaming, that's performance, and in 15 years of floor-level production, I welcomed the scrutiny. Another 15 years in supervisory positions showed me that the practice of metrics gaming only applies to upper management, and that real performance on the floor is well served by the use of metrics. Have I missed your point? I think what he's saying is that maybe you do have to use metrics to evaluate, I guess, the person as opposed to the system. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think, and it also I think ties a little bit into something that Tom mentioned in his article about Deming's red bead experiment. I think the idea that that it's employee performance on the floor at the very bottom level, at the basic level, I should say, is kind of random. That a lot of these metrics don't necessarily apply to the variances in normal performance of normal employees. Is that a proper take on that, Tom?
Well, first let me clarify when I use pronouns, I, we, and they. I and we, we're the good guys, and they are the bad guys. So we need to make that really clear. So none of us would gain metrics, of course. We're all, far above such behavior, but they would. And so we have to be very careful. But no, Mike, I believe that the tendency to, game a metric, it runs up and down the spectrum and of the hierarchy of management. I've worked as a blue-collar worker. I was a union steward, and I saw as much gaming at the floor level and shop level as I do at senior leadership levels. It's just that when the worker bees do the gaming, it generally doesn't have as much of an impact as when the higher-ups do, because they have a more limited scope. But it's just as tempting for a person who's made a defective product to try to hide that fact as it is for a manager who's implemented a defective program or plan, to the extent that metrics will uncover that, they're gamed and they're hidden. So I've seen people in manufacturing positions, for example, play around with production counts and try to meet a certain quota by ramping up just before the end of an accounting period, even though it would be better for the organization as a whole if the process produced, according to tack time and was more smooth. Okay. So I would, be a good topic to discuss with the reader over a beer, but I disagree that there's one group in the company that's more prone to gaming than another.
I think I know this. I think I know this guy, and he'd probably welcome a beer. So, Tom, thanks for, we're out of time here, so thanks for joining us and kind of going through your article and explaining what I think is a pretty interesting topic, one that probably I think a lot of people can relate to. So we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Well, my pleasure, Dirk, and I want to remind everyone that it's an election year, and you're going to see a lot of metrics gaming going on this year.
Yes, we will. Yes. All right, Tom, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you next time. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Dirk, for doing that as well. Good, yeah, interesting piece. I think there's a lot of meat there and a lot of applicability for what a lot of us are doing every day,
right,
and thinking about it. But the question was a fair one, really, and I think Tom addressed it. The idea that it does go up and down the spectrum. But I think yeah, the people on the floor that are at the business end of the machine literally are less likely, less able to, less freedom.
Right. It's a little bit more strict for them. What's going on?
I think so. Definitely great. Okay. Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Dirk. Well.